Many students are quite intimidated when they have to write a philosophy paper for the first time at university or college. And that's understandable because very few students, especially in the United States, have had much exposure at all to philosophy because most high schools do not teach philosophy. So I'm just going to go over some basic ideas on how to approach writing a philosophy paper for your university class. I'm not going to teach you how to write. I'm sure that's covered elsewhere by other professors and certainly other YouTube videos. What I'll concentrate on here is what makes a philosophy paper different from any other paper that you're writing for any other course. Well, first understand that philosophy is different, and I did another video on how unique philosophy is as an academic discipline. The one thing to keep in mind the most when you're writing a philosophy paper, and of course when you're taking a philosophy course, is how philosophy deals with fundamental issues, not just facts. And so you need to keep that in mind when you're writing your philosophy paper. Now, the best way to learn about philosophy is by trying to explain its ideas. And so the purpose of your writing assignments in a philosophy course is not to torture you. It's not to try to make you look silly or anything. It's to demonstrate, to give you the opportunity to demonstrate that you understand philosophy and understand what the ideas are getting at by explaining and analyzing those ideas in your own words. Philosophy is all about ideas, and your writing assignments will be about the ideas of the philosophers and your analysis and response to those ideas. So each of your philosophy writing assignments should fulfill three writing goals. One, to describe your understanding of the topic effectively. Two, to integrate and analyze multiple perspectives on that topic from multiple sources. And three, to synthesize your own resolution to the various perspectives, a resolution that you can describe and defend. The first and foremost thing to keep in mind is to understand that philosophy is a dialogue. It is not the same as certain other subjects at university level where you are told what the facts are and your assignments are to do little more than just repeat back to the professor what facts you've heard. Philosophy is different. Philosophy is a dialogue about ideas. There is not one right answer in philosophy. There is a discussion about the issues raised. Therefore, writing a philosophy paper is participating in that discussion by contributing your own ideas, so that you need to be in dialogue with the philosophers. That's what you need to do. Be in dialogue with the philosophers. Now, that doesn't mean saying, oh, they're all wrong, they're all stupid, or just agreeing with them, but it means dialoguing, critical analysis. It is not enough just to report what they said. Remember, this is not high school anymore. College or university level philosophy requires that you participate in the debate of ideas. You need to think for yourself in response to the philosophers. Rather than just a description of what a philosopher said, your paper should be argumentative in taking a position about what was said. Now, different professors are going to have different opinions about how much argument you are supposed to make, how much freedom of thought they think you should have. So do understand that you need to become aware of how open-minded your particular philosophy professor is. Not everyone is as open-minded as they should be, even in philosophy. Nevertheless, what you need to focus on when writing your philosophy paper is to think about ideas. Don't fill your paper with biography. Don't say, oh, Kant, he was born in this year, in this place, and he lived blah, 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 and did that. No. Don't give your professor a meaningless recitation of facts. Everyone already knows these facts. Respond philosophically. This is not a book report in high school. Respond in a dialogue. So, approach your paper with the following. Take it seriously. Don't be lazy. Again, philosophy is not a collection of facts to memorize. You don't need to memorize a periodic table of philosophy. It is about ideas. Too many lazy students just put down some sentences they read and hope that that will fly. and it won't. Everything you read that the philosophers say is an attempt to express an idea. What you need to do is take the ideas behind the words seriously. Don't just copy down some words the philosopher said. Write down what you think the philosopher's ideas were in detail. I stress again, in detail. Don't just summarize. Don't be lazy. Take it seriously and explain the ideas in depth. Philosophy is about depth. Philosophy is about dialogue, getting past superficial meaning into what's really going on. 2. Engage with the ideas. Be in dialogue with the philosophers. Respond to the ideas of the philosophers. Tell your professor what the philosophers' ideas mean and why you think they believe those ideas. This means engaging in a discussion, not just telling your professor you liked this or you didn't like that, or what's interesting to you or boring to you, or what confused you. Put in your paper what you think the strengths and weaknesses of the philosopher's ideas are, and give your alternatives. If you say, I think Plato was wrong about democracy, say why you think Plato was wrong about democracy, and give your alternative to Plato's ideas. The more you are engaging the ideas, the more you are participating in a dialogue with the philosopher, the better your paper is. That's what philosophy is all about. So give in your papers your ideas in response to the ideas of the philosophers. Treat it as a discussion between you and the philosopher. 3. Be accurate. Duh. Philosophy is about ideas, but you still have to keep your facts straight. Don't make silly mistakes. Don't say that philosopher A said X when in fact philosopher never said such a thing, or that philosopher B was in favor of Y when philosopher actually was against Y. Don't say philosopher C was inspired by philosopher D when in fact philosopher D lived before philosopher C. Think just simple things like that, and yet I see it all the time in students' papers, sorry to say. Oh, and be sure you spell the name of the philosopher correct. Way too many times people spell the names wrong, and that just shows you're not paying attention and not taking this seriously, and you deserve to have points taken off if you can't even spell the names of the philosophers you're discussing correctly. 4. Explain. Explain, explain, explain. The number one mistake students make in philosophy is not explaining what they're saying sufficiently. It is not enough just to state an idea. You must examine and explain those ideas in detail. Go into depth. Explain what the ideas mean, how that idea fits with other ideas, what it responds to, what its implications are. Again, be in dialogue with the philosophers and their ideas. Don't be lazy. Remember that the purpose of a philosophy paper is to show your professor that you understand the philosophical ideas, and you show that you understand the ideas by going into depth and explaining things thoroughly. Say what you're talking about, explain in detail what you're talking about, give your analysis of what those ideas mean in detail, give your thoughts, a response, a real response, not just I like this or I didn't like that. Talk about strengths, talk about weaknesses of the philosopher's ideas. Say why you think those are strengths and weaknesses, and give your own thoughts. Give your alternatives if you have one. Show how those ideas may work in real life if you agree with those ideas. It's a dialogue. Think of it this way. Let's say your friend tells you about his or her ideas in depth, explains what they think, explains what they feel, and they then finish and turn to you and well, what do you think? Well, if all you did with your friend was just repeat what your friend just said, your friend is going to be a little annoyed at you. No, they want to hear what you actually think, how you actually respond to what they have just told you. And think of it in those terms when you think about writing your philosophy paper. Again, you're not just repeating what you've heard. You're responding to what you've heard with your own ideas. Now, some other very basic don'ts. Should be obvious in any university paper, but I feel obligated to talk about these things. Don't cheat. Do not plagiarize. Ever. Even for a sentence, do not plagiarize. Do not take material from websites or books and use those words as your own. There are many websites and YouTube videos that talk about philosophy. Sorry to say, most of those sources are bad. Some of them really bad. You don't do yourself any favors by copying stuff from the internet anyway. And even if you have superb sources, and there are some superb sources for philosophy out on the internet, even if you read those, do not copy, do not plagiarize. You will be caught. You will be penalized. And you may very well be thrown out of the course or even out of your school. Some other very simple don'ts. Don't ignore what your professor says about some basic requirements of the papers. Do not ignore a minimum length requirement. If they say it should be a 5-page paper or it should be a 2,000-word paper, make sure it's a 5-page paper or a 2,000-word paper that you are submitting. Do it fully. Do not be lazy. Do not try to cheat. It's not going to work. If they tell you it should only be in Times New Roman 12 point with only 1-inch margins, double spacing, blah, blah, just follow the instructions. Don't try to play tricks. Don't do weird things to try to make the paper look longer than it is. Just do the work. Follow the instructions, do the work. And if, by chance, a philosophy professor tells you that foolishly they don't want to hear your own ideas, or they tell you something very specifically that goes against what I have told you here, well, obviously, they're the ones grading you, not me. So listen to them. But do take into account what I have said here about how philosophy can be, how philosophy should be. Because even if your professor isn't that open-minded and broad-minded about it, that is how philosophy is: a discussion, an analysis, an ongoing conversation. Participate in that conversation as much as you can. Good luck. Philosophy is intimidating at first, but once you start realizing that it's your opportunity to share your thoughts, philosophy can be a lot of fun, and you will learn a lot by trying to explain philosophical ideas in your own words. Good luck.